Hey everybody, welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We are back here at the dining room table. It has been a little while. So where have I been? I did take a little bit of an unexpected hiatus. Some of that was health related. A lot of it was just exhaustion, and stepping back from the channel was one of the easier things to kind of filter out of my things that I was doing. The exhaustion part of it, some of it had to do with some health things, but also the job has been very interesting as far as, how many nights I'm doing overtime and how long of overtime I'm doing every single night. It is varied. We did have actually a couple of nights where we only did, at the highest an hour, but more so it was closer to actual 8-hour shifts. And that is one of the reasons why I'm here making this video, because I actually last night was able to get a really good night's sleep and I had a lot of energy, and so I figured let's knock this out because it has been a while and I did want to get back to you guys and kind of do a bit of an update. Now, the health and just tiredness schedule and all of that is not the only reason why I figured stepping back from the channel would be a good idea. There were a few other things that have kind of bubbled up that contributed to that. One of those being, as I was, kind of preparing for the budget recap video, was realizing that, in the last few months, what I do in the Budget With Me video ends up being, if not word for word, maybe not that close, but just it feels like I'm just duplicating the information in a lot of cases. We don't have a lot of things going on, so whatever we outline in the Budget With Me's tends to be pretty accurate with the budget recaps. And so, that got me to thinking is this really offering anything of use to other people? And at the same time, because, I want the channel to be helpful for others, but with how individual everybody's journey is, I'm not entirely sure how I could be of help to those who might be in a similar situation as to what we were in before we became mostly debt-free. But I would love the opportunity to be able to give back somehow. I'm not sure how that would look. But not only did I want this to be, helpful for others, is it being helpful for us either? When I think back to when we started the channel, there were some very specific goals. We had kind of a dark cloud hanging over us because we knew that there was going to be a job cut coming at some point, and we were not prepared. So having the video, the channel, all of that, all work together to help us outline our goals, figure out a budget, which we had never had, determine what was critical to our survival, what was not necessarily a requirement, but was something that we wanted included enough to give it a spot where money was going to go to it and would not be going to other potentially higher profile goals. It gave us an opportunity to figure out what could we pare away from what we were spending money on. It helped us to figure out what we were spending money on, what money was coming in, all of those basic things that you need to do in order to create a budget and move on from there. And then it also gave us an opportunity to get support. It gave us an opportunity to get new ideas, new thoughts, to get strategies and things like that, things that we may not have thought of before, and see if they would help us meet our goals faster or not, and make decisions to implement them or not. It helped just having people, giving us encouragement on any particular video to keep going. It kept us accountable. And now that we are in a new situation, I'm not sure that the accountability piece of it is necessary anymore. We have definitely changed our relationship with money. We have definitely changed our habits with spending. We have a budget that we create and we stick to, and we have now done so for getting close to 2 years. We have goals. We know how to utilize our money in a way that is beneficial for us. We don't have a completely debt-free life, but we are working on getting that last debt taken care of. So we've really done a 180 on how we interact with money and how we deal with our finances, which was kind of a low bar because we didn't really deal with our finances before. So, from a a hindsight, I almost said 2020 vision, a hindsight view, that really stressful, terrible situation of losing a job that I absolutely loved, a team that I absolutely loved working with, a boss that was just absolutely fantastic. Can I say absolutely any more times? As much as that was hard and terrible, because I don't know that I'm going to get to that level of job enjoyment again, it kind of was necessary, because thinking back to, kind of our mentality back there, and I don't know that we would have ever naturally gotten to that point that we needed to. We needed, even if we had the thought of, oh, well, we need to be thinking about something bad happening and get prepared, it would be a fake situation, and so very easy to ignore, to put off if something got hard or anything like that. The loss of a job was out of our hands. We did not control that narrative, and so it really forced us to stop, take a look at where things were and what we were doing, and come up with a better plan. We were very, very, very lucky that the actual layoff took so long, because it did allow us to meet quite a few goals, and that is another reason why, or another thing that's kind of been bubbling up in my mind. It's like we've achieved essentially the main goal of what the channel was. We saved a bunch of money so that we could weather me being out of work for an unknown amount of time. We paid off a large chunk of our debt in the form of credit cards, personal loans, and car payments. We do still have the mortgage, but that's covered with the budget that we finally were able to make and make in a way that we were able to work it, stick with it. So really, we have kind of come to what I feel like is the natural conclusion of the channel, at least as it was originally envisioned. Now, as I said, I would love to be able to offer something that would help others that were in a similar situation as we were, but I just don't know how that would even look, because everybody's situation is so unique. There's tons and tons of advice and guidance out there that's very generic, and it kind of has to be so that it can be applicable to the vast majority of people. I don't know how I would be able to be more helpful than something that was that vague and generic, and that's already out there in thousands of different ways. So so the purpose of the channel is kind of getting a little hazy. The other piece that really kind of struck me, and this was kind of a big one, and it's a feeling that I've had for a little while, probably I would say at a greater intensity since we experienced the layoff. But it has been there behind the scenes, kind of throughout this whole process. And that is just the reality of what our situation is not as relatable as it could be if our numbers were different. That's how I'll put it. It really kind of struck home when I was doing up our budget and getting our spreadsheet ready, because even though I haven't been doing videos, we are following our budgets, following our practices, but getting all of that squared away, looking at the numbers and everything for the second pay period of August budget. And that was the pay period where we were going to see the greatest benefit of Mr. M's Magic Month. So that means once we figured out all of our costs and everything, at the end of the pay period, we had a very significant amount of discretionary income left over. Far more significant than it has been for a while. And looking at that number, I just felt uncomfortable. And that's not because I'm ashamed of, the money that we make. It's not because I don't feel like it's important to share differing perspectives and things like that. I do feel like talking about money, and especially talking about money in detail, is still a fairly taboo subject. And I feel like it is important to shine light on that so that if mistakes are being made, others can learn from those mistakes. If there's things that are going on and other people have knowledge or experience that might be helpful, putting it out there so that you can garner that. But, putting that aside, it did make me feel uncomfortable. It made me feel concerned because I know what is going on in this world today, and life is just hard. Prices are through the roof. Things are not getting any cheaper. And if you look at, how difficult life is for people across the spectrum, all over, the United States, the world, things that are going on politically, things that are going on in the local arena, state, federal, in the world, environmentally, economically, just the whole shebang. It's hard. And being in a place where at the end of our budget process, we anticipate, and then, after the pay period's over, typically reap what we have expected to see. And we have $500 to $1,000 to maybe even more dollars unaccounted or not being spent yet. So we have a large discretionary amount of money. It just has been feeling like it's not appropriate to be talking about that. That it may not necessarily come across as like a humble brag or a look what we have and what we're able to do, but just that it's not taking into account where other people are. and that it might be discouraging to somebody who is in a similar debt situation as we were and is trying to make progress, but is not seeing the success at the rate they would like to, or maybe not seeing success at the rate that we were, and making comparisons, which, should never compare yourself to other people, but that's really easy to say. But that it might be more of a detriment, and I would hate for that to be the case. Now, again, the numbers are what the numbers are. We earn what we earn. We've created a budget that we are comfortable living, and it spends what it spends, and there's money left over, and we have to make a decision on what we're going to do with that. I mean, that is what it is. But it does not mean that I'm not unaware of being in a privileged situation at this time, even having gone through the stress of waiting for a job loss, even having gone through the stress of actually being laid off, the stress of being unemployed, though I have to admit, I didn't really hate being unemployed. I mean, the job hunting part was kind of annoying, but I think I could be a lady of leisure. But anyway, and then the stress of trying to find a job and just what these places of employment are doing, and just that nightmare. And then, of course, finally getting hired on and dealing with kind of the stress of a new position, and particularly the one that I have and how different it is, timing, for scheduling and just what I'm doing and everything like that. So, all of that, of course, is very relatable. It is something that people are going through, but I don't know. It struck me when I was looking at this very large number that, is this of help to anybody to be saying, hey, we have X dollars, and so now this is how we're going to spend it, even though it's not, we're going to go spend this and go to Disneyland, or we're going to go spend this and buy a bunch of stuff. It's going to very specific goals, but still to have it as discretionary money could potentially be discouraging. And I never want anybody to feel discouraged because of something that I'm putting out there. So those are the reasons that it was very easy for me to kind of just step back, live our life, and not do the videos. But because we did do the one budget with me at the beginning of August, I felt if there won't be any more videos for the channel, at the very least, I wanted to do an update to, essentially kind of close the gap so that we could call August, done, and we didn't just have some random video out there with no ending. So to that end, what I did, I'm not going to go through the sheets that we put together, but I will do an update on our big ticket items. So first and foremost, I'm trying to keep the second month here covered up. I can't really see. There we go. So the emergency fund, we ended July at $4,177.04, and we ended the first pay period in August, so the first half of August, at $4,418.04. The long-term goals was at $4,262 at the end of July and was bumped up to $4,603 by the middle of August. The mortgage was at $225,882.67. And by the end of the first pay period, it was down to $225,641.67. Now, something that we did add to the mix in August was investing. And we did it in two ways. We added it as a line item in the actual budget, $250 per pay period. So $125 per pay period for each of us, $250 total in the month, and that means $500 per month is dedicated to investing, and that is for us to invest in our Roth IRAs, which I had one that I created a little while ago, and I'd only put like $30 into it. Mr. M put his together, got his started in August so that, we could do this process. The money that we allocate in the budget, specifically in the budget, is a auto transfer, and we have set up specific trades, purchases, stuff, how we're going to use that money in an automated fashion. So there's a transfer, and then about 5 days later, the system does its automatic thing, and that money gets allocated to the different investing opportunities that we've chosen to invest in. So that's all automated, and it makes sure that no matter what happens as far as money being available at the end of the pay period, some money is going to investing during the month. So that's that. So for that first pay period, we each had $215 total that went to our investing needs, or $430 for that. So that's where we ended the first pay period. And now for the second pay period, or the end of the month, we know where we were for the emergency fund. We ended August with $135.08, which is wonderful because it means we are, less than $1,000 away from hitting that level 2 of $6,000 saved. So then we can move on to level 3, which will be saving an additional $6,000, which will get us to $12,000, up through our goal to get to a total of $72,000, or the equivalent of $6,000 a month of expenses. Long-term goals, we ended at $4,603 for the first pay period, and we ended the month at $5,395. So again, fantastic, very excited to see that. And we can look here at our super colorful little tracker. It is up to date as of the end of the month. I have not added the $100. I don't think this $100 is for the last transfer that we had for September. I'm pretty sure this is all just August and before stuff. So anyway, that puts us at $5,395. Now, $2,500 of that is still allocated for the yard cleanup. That is still on the table. That still has not been done. That is still on my last nerve. I will say we've had 2 people come out to give us, to assess the area and give us bids. We're still waiting on a bid from the second person, so we'll see. They were supposed to send it, I think, today. Maybe they won't. Maybe they decided that's too much and they're just going to ghost us. We'll see. But at least so far, the 2 people that have come through, the handling that they have indicated that they're going to do is they would just, kind of cut the vinage off and haul it away, so there wouldn't be any kind of digging out of the roots or anything like that involved, which is kind of a bummer to me, but I get it. You would really need to have some kind of like little mini backhoe or something like that to really be able to do a good job of that. And at least these folks aren't necessarily prepared to utilize that kind of machinery. And I don't know, it would depend on how big it was, if they would even be able to get it to the backyard to do that stuff. So my thought is if everybody that we do have to come out and does give a bid, if they essentially are going to be doing the same thing, then what we could do is, once that's all done, come back in and with like a paintbrush, just brush crossbow directly on whatever root stem, stems that there still is. Maybe have to do a new cut so it's, fresh, and we'll draw the stuff in. And then that way would be targeted on the crowns, or I don't even know what you call the root ball of the blackberries, and hopefully kill them and not have to worry about any chemical wash or it getting where we don't want it, since we do have food-bearing plants in the general vicinity that we want to keep and use and things like that. So we're still working on that whole thing. I hope we're going to get to a point where some actual action is going to take place. I don't understand why it's taking so long, but it is not my project to be headed up. That has been given to Mr. M to handle, and I am trying very hard not to step in and step on toes or anything like that. There's no guarantee that I would have any more success than he is. So it's just, I want this done. So it's a little frustrating. Now, that said, that does, of course, mean we still do not have an idea of what the full cost of this project will be. And so we don't know how much of this $53.95 we're going to need. Up next, we have the carport, which we obviously haven't had anybody else come out to look at to get an idea of what a cost would be to reinforce or just rebuild. In a perfect world, we would pull our roof line over. I would absolutely love us to be able to do that, but I have to imagine something like that's got to be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars probably. It doesn't mean I'm not going to ask when we finally get to that point, but that's probably going to be outside of our league for a little bit. But number one is the carport. We also have the need for a new air conditioner for the central air. It is kaput. It's done. It's old. I think it's something like it's more than that. It's 25 years old, I think, because I want to say they said it was about 10 years old when we moved in. And we've been in the house for over 10 years. So I think it's in that 20 to 25 year range. And I already know that the fluid that it uses is banned. So I don't know if it could use a different kind of coolant thing or whatever it is that it uses. But my understanding is it's also cracked. So there is leakage issues. So basically, we need a new actual machine that could come with needs for additional ductwork. So who knows how much that would cost, but that is on the to-do list as well. It's right now, it's at number 2. But we've got a dark horse that's come in, our refrigerator, which we have had tons of problems with, is getting to the point where it is not keeping things cool enough. We had like 3/4 of a half gallon of milk that we had in there not very long, and it was chunky. It may have been in there 5 days, 7 days, and typically we are able to use and have milk for well over 2 weeks before anything starts to go bad, at least in the past. And this was not the first time we'd noticed that it was going bad faster. We're starting to see some mildewy mold stuff. It's always very moist in there. We can see little droplets of water. And an issue that we've just had for years and years now. The refrigerator itself is just about 10 years old. So it's not even, at least in my mind, it's not that old. So we shouldn't be having these problems. But, built-in obsolescence, that's what they do. They make sure that these things aren't going to last long. We have an issue where the freezing element collects water, condensation or whatever. And from what I understand, it's supposed to just drain out of the refrigerator, but the area where it drains gets frozen over because whatever little thing that's supposed to keep that area warmed up, it's not doing its job. It's either it doesn't touch well enough, it doesn't conduct enough heat to keep that from damming up or whatever, but eventually the very bottom of the freezer area, which we have one of those drawer freezers, fills up with water and it freezes over, and it gets to a point where, the drawer gets stuck. So of course we have to wrench it really hard in order to actually open it, which is not good for it. And then pull the drawers out and then chip all the ice and toss it away, dry it out, and then put it back. And then it's good for another 5 months-ish. And then we have to do it all over again. So we've been doing that multiple times a year for many years. So the bottom line is Mr. M really wants us to get a new refrigerator, and I totally get it. We don't want to have any more spoiled and wasted food. We don't want to have to be dealing with the whole floody issue and freeze issue. We are never, ever, ever, ever getting a drawer freezer again. Never. It's not for us. Other people may have great success with it. It's not for us. So that is also on the table and probably is going to bump the other two because we're talking about keeping our food safe and things like that. So that said, I have to say, we can't purchase anything until we know how much we need for this yard cleanup. So really trying to get that going and handled, and then we'll have an idea of what monies we have left to go to probably a new refrigerator first, and then kind of debate whether it's carport or air conditioning that we're saving up for. Okay, so that's where things are for that. All right, next we have the mortgage. So by the end of this, not this pay period, by the end of August, we landed at $224,336.40, which means we are under $225,000, which is such a fantastic place to be. I'm very excited, very proud of us. We have been making some great strides. I am really kind of surprised that we made it to this point. I don't know why. I mean, we're being diligent and everything, but I'm still a little surprised, especially because in order to have money for investing as part of our priority goals, we did reduce how much we're putting towards the mortgage repayment or pay down by 10%, which is not insignificant. So even with that change, we still have made a really nice progress. And I think the next big goal, the one that we'll probably do some kind of celebration amongst ourselves, go out to dinner or something like that, will be $200,000. I can only imagine how wonderful it will be to have a 1 at the beginning of that mortgage number. I cannot wait, but that's another $24,000. So at the very least, it's going to be a year, I would expect. It's also going to depend on how much discretionary money we have at the end of every pay period. Are there any bonuses that might be at play that would help us push that a little bit faster? That all of those sorts of things. So what does that mean long term? Well, if we look at September 1st, on our amortization chart for our original loan thing, September of 2025, we would have, or they expected us to be at $243,348.88. So that is nearly a $20,000 difference in where we are versus where the expectation was fantastic. Very happy to see that. And the number that matches where we are most closely, this one's roughly $31 less than this, matches up to August of 2028. So essentially we've knocked 3 years off of the timeline for getting this paid off. So even if we weren't to do any new extra payments or anything like that, we just paid exactly what we're supposed to, we would be 3 years early in our payoff. Now, I would absolutely love it if we could pay this off in 10 years or less. I don't know how feasible that is. We'll just kind of have to wait and see how things go. But we do have our fancy little payoff chart here. And with this latest update, it means since we started this, we have paid our mortgage down by $7,342.55. Okay, and we started in April doing this, I believe. You know what? I think I'm going to just write down April 2025. There we go. And so that means we were able to fill in up to $7,000 because again, each of these squares is $500 worth of reduction. So we're almost done with this third line, and I am extremely, extremely excited about that. I'm very happy with my numbers and everything, but sometimes a visual is it's worth its weight in gold and seeing the progress that you've made. So love it. Very, very pleased with what we have done so far. And then the last little bit here is for the pay period, we had $355. Yeah, $355 for investing, for a total of $770 during the pay period. And that means over the course of the month of August, we had a total of $1,200 or $600 each that we were able to invest. So that's kind of all of the big numbers. I'm not really sure where things go from here. It has been nice not, having one less thing kind of on my plate to do. But I'm very open and would really like to, as I said, be able to present some things that would be helpful for other people. I don't know what that would look like. As far as the investing stuff, if I don't know what level of interest there is on that, I don't see us getting, super in depth about exactly what we're investing in. As I've said before, we are novices, we are amateurs at best. We are not inexperienced with investing. Don't get me wrong, neither of us had ever had an IRA before this year, but we both have 401ks, and at least for my process of dealing with a 401k, and I believe it's the same for Mr. M, I researched the heck out of all of the different options that I could choose to put my money into before I made my selections and what percentage of funds I wanted to go in there. I definitely was not one to say, okay, well, based on my age, my expected retirement date is, 2040 something or whatever it is. And so let's just put all the money in that kind of built-in retirement fund that they have. Well, not everybody has that, but at least at my work, they did have some where it'd be a retirement fund 20, 30, 35, 40, 45. So you could just invest money in that. But no, I looked at all of the options. I did my research, checked into the companies, if it was a, very specific entity. I looked at, what are they? Are they tech heavy? Are they commodities? Are they large cap, small cap? Is it domestic? Is it foreign? Is it a mixture? Is it a money market? Is it actually just a conglomeration of stocks? Is it a very specific stock itself that doesn't have That's not a mix of a bunch of different others, some kind of fund that has a bunch of different others. I looked at the return. What did they do this year so far? What did they do last year? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15. If they had it 20, I want to see in the short term how is the perception of what they're doing, and over the long term, how are they doing? So that I could make what I hoped would be, an informed decision as to where I could get the best return for my money. And I learned pretty early on in that process that despite how I am for almost everything else in my life, I am very risk tolerant when it comes to investing. I prefer to be an aggressive investor. And I think a lot of that is because I'm very well aware that length and time in the market has a big impact. And it gives you the opportunity to secure a lot of high risk, high reward. The opposite could happen. It could tumble down, terribly. But the thought is, if you're in it for the long haul and there's a market correction or things go south for a while, and as it reacts to certain outside influences, even if it takes 2, 3, 5 years to recover, the thought is if you're choosing those high risk, high rewards and nothing catastrophic happens to the particular entities that are involved in that fund, or if it is a specific stock, that a downturn is just an opportunity. If you're looking at it long haul, it means you're able to get into that entity even better at cheaper prices, and then with the thought that eventually things will turn around. And if it was a high flyer before, and again, nothing else has changed about it to make it not be one, though you're going to have essentially an increased number of stock from what you would have had before. So if it used to be $100 per share and the market corrected significantly and now they're only $50 per share, well, for that 2 to 3 year period, you're buying them at that $50 or roughly $50. You're getting essentially twice the number of shares as you were before. It starts to build back up and gets back up to the $100 a share. Well, now you have an even larger number of shares, so you're hopefully going to capitalize on that being a high risk, high reward thing. Again, speculative, don't know, could go terribly and never recover, but I am willing to pursue more aggressive avenues for investing, and hope that long-term process helps even things out, scales things, allows for dips and recoveries. And then, maybe about 3 to 5 years before retirement, presumably the market's in a good place, that's the point where I would become far more conservative, because I would want to then hold on to and retain whatever upside I have been able to garner from being more open to risk earlier in the investment process. So, I learned that about myself early on when I was doing my 401k investment. I have approached the IRA that I was forced to open because the old job stopped administering our 401k, so it had to be rolled over. I have approached my new 401k that way. I am approaching the Roth IRA that way. Lots and lots of research, seeing what feels like it's going to be a fit for my needs and my goals, and going from there. So all of that is to say, I have no problems with doing snapshots kind of like this every month of where we sit in our investment world. We don't just have the Roth IRA. We both have that. I have my traditional IRA and I have my 401k for my new job. He's got a 401k and he has company stock as well. So, we have an investment portfolio that is, slowly building, and we're trying to nurture that even more now as we get closer to a retirement time period, but we still have like 20 years. So I know Mr. M would not be interested in getting into like nitty-gritty details about his stuff. He's good with just snapshot, here's the total for this month sort of thing. I might be open to talking rate of return and stuff along those lines, but it really would depend on what people are interested in. I have no idea. It may be that nobody's interested at all, and that this is, essentially the last video that I'll be doing, and that I am okay with that as well. We made it through the difficult time that was the catalyst of creating this channel. We did that with a lot of learning, a lot of changing of habits, a lot of changing of mindsets, and a lot of support and encouragement from the budgeting community. So if this does end up being our last video, I want to say so many thank yous to all of you, because you guys, yes, your words on a screen, I'm a voice on a video with some hands, but it has meant so much to have that support, especially in a situation where we were so unprepared. We did not know what we were doing. And there were a lot of people who offered suggestions, who offered advice. Some of it we took, some of it we listened to and made the decision that it wasn't right for us, but the support was there and it was tremendous and it was so helpful. We didn't, or I didn't video every single thing that was hard or a challenge or anything like that. We stuck mostly to what are the numbers and that, but just know that it meant a lot, and it continues to mean a lot, that there have been people who have been interested in our story, interested in our progress, and have stuck with us along the way and let us know, their thoughts. So on that note, if you do have any feedback, suggestions, ideas, or anything like that, just want to say, hey, good to see you again. Please note those down below. And I don't know if there will be another one, but if there is, I hope we'll see you there. Bye for now.